Another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Simone Knego. She is an international speaker, award-winning author, and confidence expert who helps high achievers reconnect with their worth and lead more meaningful lives. Her best-selling book, The Extraordinary, Unordinary You, and her globally ranked podcast, Her Unshakable Confidence, which she co-hosts with her daughter, have inspired audiences around the world. A two-time TEDx speaker featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, Entrepreneur, and Yahoo News, Simone is also the creator of The Real Method, a framework for building lasting confidence from the inside out. From summiting Mount Kilimanjaro to raising six children and navigating the beautiful chaos of everyday life, she brings authenticity, perspective, and heart to everything she does. Welcome to the podcast, Simone.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited for our conversation. I'm so interested in the confidence, the self-respect. I feel like a lot of women is especially kind of like maybe don't have as much as that as they need to get through life. So before we get into that conversation, can you start off by just sharing just a little bit more about you, your personal journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I'm a mom of six. Like that is will always be my biggest accomplishment. And I started my journey thinking I was going to be a doctor. My parents were both doctors. My sister's a doctor. My husband's a doctor. And I failed organic chemistry twice. And so it just wasn't in the cards for me. I ended up becoming a certified public accountant. I have both a bachelor's and master's in accounting, and realized after a couple years of practice that it wasn't for me. So I'm a big believer in that it's okay to change your mind. I have done many things. I have flipped houses. I went back to school to be a teacher. I got into medical sales, and then I started speaking on a volunteer basis. Didn't know I had a story, right? And
Mhm.
so that was kind of the beginning of where I am now. And I truly believe that this is my purpose. And I am so passionate about what I do because if I can inspire one other person or change one person's mind, then I really do feel like I've made a change in the world. And so I am so happy doing what I'm doing.
Oh, I'm so excited because that is so true. I mean, a lot of us feel like, gosh, what we don't have a story. Like, I'm just like this ordinary person, like just going through trying to survive life, really. I mean, I think you and I both with six kids, sometimes that's just the reality is just surviving the day. But I feel like, all those experiences that you have had really gives you ground for lots of stories. So, like, I don't know where you want to start with all of that because there's so much like, oh, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, like that in itself is like how many stories?
Yeah.
And but just raising six kids and just and changing your mind and just trying to find what you're really, what really is your purpose and your passion. So go wherever you want to start with.
Yeah. I think that we live in a society where by 18, by the time you finish high school, you have to know what you want to do with the rest
Mhm.
of your life. And I think that's just crazy
Yeah.
because when you jump into something, you don't know if you like it, then you're not even fully developed then. So a lot of times we get stuck in a rut and it's really hard to move forward. And that's why I think that you should try as many things as you
True.
can. Now, obviously, you still have to bring money home. So I'm not saying go, quit your job tomorrow, but really understanding that there is always opportunity to do something different. In today's day and age, you can make a job out of anything. I mean, when you look around and you're like, wait, you make $1 million a year for posting TikTok videos? What?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. But for me, when I look back at my life, a lot of things I did, I really struggled with self-doubt. I had an abusive boyfriend during high school, and I really kind of just shoved that part of my life down. I didn't deal with it, didn't talk about it. My husband knew about it, my kids knew about it, but it wasn't like I wouldn't be on a podcast talking about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but what I realized is that experience really kind of changed who I was, and it made me feel a lot of shame. I felt guilty. And I shouldn't feel any of that, right?
Right.
I didn't make it happen, right? At least I finally said, okay, I'm out. I'm leaving.
Mhm.
But I truly believe that each of us, when we talk about self-doubt, we have something that happened in our life that kind of begins that cycle. And we might not even be aware of what it was.
Mhm.
Even for me with writing. So when I first decided that I was going to write a book, the first thought I had was, my fifth grade English teacher told me I sucked at writing. And I really never thought that I could be a writer after that. When
Mhm.
people said, "Oh, you
Mhm.
should write a book," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not a writer."
Mhm.
Limiting myself, right? And I think it's so
Right.
important that we don't limit ourselves. And we can't listen to what other people say all the time, right? We do this comparison game. We make ourselves feel bad because we're not doing what everybody else is doing. That's why we're unique. We don't
Yeah.
need to be doing what anybody else is doing.
Right, right. And what I kind of hear from that, like a little bit, is, that self-doubt is really plays a part in a lot of things, and we don't even know like where it comes from sometimes. It could just be like a slight, one sentence, one little statement from somebody that our brain like attaches, and we might forget about it, but it shapes like how we think and the decisions that we make from there on out. I mean, you talk about your fifth grade English teacher is like, oh, yeah, right. Well, somehow then that comes back out and you're like, wow, where did that go? Like, and it was buried for so long. But I think that also limits us because it stops us from taking, I don't, not necessarily risks, but yes, some people think it is risk when we want to change course, when like we're stuck and we want to do something different, but that self-doubt comes in. How do people like manage that?
Yeah, I think we're so afraid of failure. That's such a big part that we're not even willing to try. And when we're not trying, we're not growing.
Hmm.
And it's the realization that failing at something doesn't make you a failure. It means it just didn't work in that moment. And
Hmm.
so, and that's really, if we start with my real method, that's really why I created that, because I went through my life and it kind of, when I started really thinking about it was at Kilimanjaro,
Hmm.
because how did I get from where I was to where I am in terms of what are the things that really made me move, help me move forward?
Hmm.
And so REAL stands for respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits.
Mm.
And the reason I start with self respect is because I think it is self respect and self love commingled,
Yeah.
really the most important place that we need to start. When I look back at my childhood, I was taught to respect my peers, my elders,
Hmm.
teacher. And then again, I think that's like when I think about my fifth grade teacher, that I respected her so much. So when she said that, it must be true, right?
Right, right.
And so, but if we don't respect ourselves, how do we expect other people to respect us?
Hmm.
So we need to be able to set boundaries. We need to be able to say no and not feel guilty about it, right? I get asked to do a lot of things now, and I'm like, I'm sorry, my schedule doesn't allow for that. And
Right.
I used to be the yes girl. I would say yes to everything because I felt guilty. If I didn't do it, oh, they're going to think that I'm lazy or, right? So all of these things come into play. But that's why I think that self respect is where we start. And then the next part, embracing your failures, because what I was mentioning before is that we're so afraid of failing that we won't even try. But what if we looked at it differently? What if we said, wait, this is just part of learning?
Hmm.
And when you think back to school, you did fail, right? You did
Yeah.
bad on things and you learned and then you moved forward. You didn't just throw in the bag and say, well, no, never trying that again,
Right,
right? That's
right.
not how it works. But as adults, we tend to do that more because we fear judgment, we compare ourselves with others, all of these parts
Mhm.
that become, it directs how we move forward, which when you literally sit back and think about it, you're like, why am I doing that? That
Yeah.
makes no sense. Why do I care what Sally's doing over there? That does not help my life move forward.
Right.
So, and then ask yourself what you want. I think this is one of the hardest things for women because, especially, I mean, we know with both of us having six kids that the idea of having time for yourself,
Hmm.
I mean, when I was younger, I definitely felt guilty that if I was taking time away from my kids, or I would make sure that I was cooking something they wanted, not necessarily what I wanted, right? I mean, this is how we do things. And then all of a sudden the kids are out of the house and you're like, what do I do with my life?
Hmm.
And that's why I made that conscious decision to say, okay, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? What did I really want to do when I was younger? Okay, yes, medicine, but actually when, I failed organic chemistry, my dad said, "So what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to become an actress." And he was like, No. He goes, "I'm paying the bills while you live under my roof. You follow my rules." And again, a thing that I'll never forget. And so I did accounting. And again, I was good at it, but wasn't really what I wanted. So then when I thought about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, I'm not going to go back into acting right now or go into acting right now, but the things I do are kind of similar, right? I get to go
Yeah.
on stage and speak. I get to be on podcasts. I get to
Yeah.
host my own podcast and I get to write stories. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really part of what I really wanted to do a long time ago.
Mhm.
That the little kid inside of us really doesn't disappear. You know, the one that wanted to be the ballerina and the
Yeah.
astronaut, they're still in there. We just
Right.
have to bring them out. And especially, so maybe you're not going to work full time as a ballerina, but you could go take dance classes to
Mhm.
say, this is fun,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. The creative ways of that we can still do the things that we enjoy or that we think we might enjoy, but in like smaller doses. We don't
Yeah.
have to be like, oh, I gotta be this great actress that does all these things, but really what makes that up?
Mhm.
You are playing parts, you're speaking, you're writing stories, you're sharing things, you're performing, in front of people. And so we all have that kind of inside of us. And I want to let you get to the last one of real, and then we'll kind of like talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So last one is live without limits because we limit ourselves on a daily basis. We tell ourselves we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not good enough. We're just not enough. And that
Mhm.
is so far from the truth, right? So why do we limit ourselves? Like for example, when I first started speaking in the volunteer realm, I had people ask me, have you written a book? No, what I said. I'm not a writer. That's limiting myself. Why can't I be a writer? So every time we tell ourselves we're not capable of something, our
Mhm.
brain believes it, and
Mhm.
then we're not willing to try. So there's lots of science out there that says the more you repeat something, the more you believe it. Same
Yeah.
thing like when you see something out in the public, you see it over and over again. If we talk
Mhm.
about media or social media, you start
Mhm.
to believe it,
Mhm.
and that's why it's so important that the things that we say to ourselves are positive and not negative because the positive is true. If we can tell ourselves negative things all day long and believe them, why can't we tell ourselves positive things all day long and believe them?
Yeah, yeah. And so when listeners are hearing this, this is awesome. The real respect yourself, embrace failures, ask what you want, live without limits. You're giving examples a little bit, but I want to circle back to like respect. Like you say no, set boundaries. Like, how do you define self-respect? Because I feel like some, people just like don't really know what it means.
Yeah, I would say that self respect is putting yourself first in the best way possible. So I'm not saying you're running over people to get things done. It's that
Hmm.
you understand that you have value, that you have worth, and that what anybody says, it shouldn't affect you.
Hmm.
And so it is the setting of boundaries. It is making sure that you're being yourself and not trying to be someone else. At the end of the day, we'll go to I was actually on a guy's podcast and this was hilarious. And he said, I went to this event and it was all women and they were all dressed to the nines, full makeup. And he's like, and there's not a guy in sight. So he's like, and it was really funny for him to hear it from his perspective, right?
Right,
Because he
right,
thinks you only get dressed up if there's guys around.
right.
And what was really interesting, he asked some of the women, like, why are you full face of makeup, dressed so fancy, and it wasn't really a fancy event? And the biggest response that he got, or the most common response that he got, was that, well, if everybody else is dressed that way, then I'm going to feel bad about myself if I'm not. And so I think we have to change that. I think we have to really think about just being who you are.
Hmm.
And you don't need to impress anybody, right? Other than yourself. So
Right,
it's really about when you look in the mirror, you treat yourself as you would your best friend, right? The things that we say to ourselves, the mean things that we say, we would never say them to our best friends, right? So why
right,
do we say them to ourselves? Because we should be our best friend.
right,
Um,
right.
I
Right.
like
Because
to,
I always end that with like, if you did that and you said that to your friends, would you have any friends? Like,
right, right.
you wouldn't have any friends. Like nobody would want to be around you. So I don't, and sometimes like when I get kind of crappy on myself, I don't even want to be around myself.
Yeah,
I'm like, well,
yeah.
that's true because I would, if I said that to somebody else, nobody would want to be around me. And so we have to take care of ourselves. And that's like the self-respect, but also that love piece. Because I
Mhm.
remember you said kind of like coincide that self-love. We gotta love ourselves. Like
Yeah.
whoever you are, like whatever you like. Like, yeah, I'm wearing makeup today, but a couple days ago you didn't see me in any of that. So
Yeah. And this is who I am, right? That stuff doesn't matter. When I put on makeup because I want to, not because I'm
Mhm.
worried that someone else is going to say, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
she's not wearing makeup."
Right.
And it's actually something that I really paid attention to with my daughter, with that I have the podcast with, because I had shoulder surgery about 4 weeks ago, and it's like impossible to put on makeup right now, right? You got one hand that works, and that's
Yeah.
it. And so we were the first time, like, we really went out of the house to go to this nice dinner. I said, "Do I need to put on makeup?" She goes, "Why? You look beautiful. Why?" And I was like, that's what I needed to hear, right? And
Yeah.
that's what I need to be saying to myself.
Yes.
So, but I
Yeah.
had a period of time when I was so mean to myself. My daughter walked in. I was in getting ready for an event. I had gained weight. Didn't fit in my clothes. I was just so down on myself, and I was saying it out loud, right? I'm looking in the mirror and just
Mhm.
really beating myself up. And my daughter walks in and she goes, "Okay, first of all, you're beautiful. Second of all, you need to stop. You're giving me a complex. How do you expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own?"
Mm.
And I thought that was a big change maker for me, because she was right. So we think about, well, usually we don't even think about what we say to ourselves. We
Yeah.
just do it naturally. And we don't realize that how it affects the people around us. So we talk about how our relationship with someone else can affect our children or our friendships. So think about your relationship with your spouse. Like, if you're fighting all the time, what do your kids know? They know fighting. Like, if my husband and I even start having any kind of words, which we don't ever yell, the kids are
Mhm.
like, "Oh my God, they're fighting." I'm like, "This is not fighting," right? It's so funny.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with yourself, right? So if you're constantly saying horrible things to yourself or beating yourself up about stuff, what do your kids see? Right? They're sponges. They're going to absorb
Right.
all of that. So then they're going to think, "Oh, the way we should be is so hard on ourselves all the time."
Right. Right.
So,
And it doesn't actually have to be that verbal. They get that energy.
100%.
You know that tension. You can feel the tension between two people. You can see it. And that's what gets absorbed as well. And they probably remember that a little bit more. That just that how it makes them feel.
Hmm.
And how does that make you feel when you're talking to yourself that way? Do you want to like go out and like have a bunch of energy? Like we don't. Like we just want to hide and do nothing.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, when we have a toxic relationship with someone that's in our sphere, we don't want that relationship anymore. So why would we want a toxic relationship with ourselves?
Right.
Right?
It
And
doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't make any sense. And that's why I think we really have to think about that. So when
Mhm.
I talk about self-respect, and a lot of it for me is mindset. So I have this little hack that I like to do. I call it, it's my little gimmick, but I think it works really well,
Mhm.
because when we start getting those negative thoughts in our head, it's really a reset for saying, is this real? Is this a story? So Control Alt Delete, which is how we used to reset our computers back in the day. The
Right.
computer would freeze, you'd
Yep.
Control Alt Delete it to reboot it. But I use it for mindset. So basically, the control part is the awareness, understanding that when these negative thoughts come in our head, we have the ability to change them. We have that control, right? We can ask ourselves, is this real or am I making this up, right? Most
Mhm.
of the time, we're making it up,
Yeah.
right? The second part is alt, which is alternative. We can tell
Mhm.
ourselves something different. So instead of saying, "I can't," how
Mhm.
about "I can?"
Mhm.
Or instead of saying, "What if I fail?" How about "when I succeed?" Get rid of the negative parts of it, because there's no reason when you set a goal, you put in the work, that you can't accomplish it, right?
Right.
So, but a lot of it is mindset. If we think we can't, we can't. If we believe we can, we can. It's
Right.
sounds simple, but I mean, it is actually true that
Mhm.
it's not just sitting there. You have to do the work, but that
Right.
mindset is such a huge piece of things.
Yeah.
And then the last part is delete. Delete the things that don't serve you. Like, think about like a computer when the program is way too big or it's just bogging down. What do? You delete it off the computer so that the computer can run again. It's the
Right.
same thing with these ideas that you have about yourself. You don't need them. It's really about saying, this isn't real. Let it
Yeah.
go.
Right.
And so anytime I'm kind of like having those spiraling thoughts, I had actually, I'll give a quick example. I went to this event right after COVID, and it was a friend of mine. She's the fanciest person I know, like fancy for everything. And that is just not me. I am a jeans and t-shirt kind of girl. And she invited me to go, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to go put on a big old fancy dress for this. And so I put on jeans and a blazer and a pair of cute sneakers. And I literally sent my daughter a selfie, And she's like, "You look great. Get out the door." Because I was like, "I don't think I'm gonna go." She's like, "Get out the door." And
Yeah.
I kind of needed that. Get out the door.
Right.
So as I'm driving there, I'm like doing Control Alt Delete. Like, okay, do you really think anybody is going to think about what you wear? Have you ever remembered what anybody else has worn to an event? No.
Sure.
Okay. So so that's step number one, awareness, right? And
Right.
then the changing it from it's you look great. And then delete it. Get it out of there. Get out of the car, walk in the room. And what actually happened was I met amazing women. There are a few people I already knew, but I had a great time. I had actually several people said, "Oh, they love that I wear jeans." One woman said to me, "I would have worn jeans, but I didn't know we were allowed to." And so it was a big reminder is that we don't need permission to be ourselves, right? So I'm not saying you're going to go to someone's wedding and wear jeans, but again, if we don't have to put so much pressure on ourselves to be like everybody else.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. If you feel your best when you are dressed comfortably, what you feel is best for you, like I'm not gonna go, yeah, there's a few dresses that I wear now, but I never was in dresses before. I like that t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah,
It's comfort. It's
yeah,
comfortable.
yeah.
So this real method with the respect and just, like letting go of your limits and things, that kind of can help breed a little bit more confidence, correct?
Oh, yeah. It's all about building confidence because confidence is a skill. It is not something that someone has or they don't. It's
Mhm.
something that you have to work on. It's a practice like anything else we do. Like we don't go to the gym one time
Yeah.
and become super strong. It just doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm a big believer in positive affirmations, the way we talk to ourselves, because that is a practice of telling yourself that you are good enough, that
Right.
you are capable enough, that you are beautiful, that all these things. You look at crazy statistics. There was a study done by the Dove Self-Esteem Project.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they did, and I don't know if they've updated it recently,
Hmm.
but it's still tiny. They said that they did a global questionnaire.
Hmm.
If women, what percentage of women think that they're beautiful? 4%. 4% of women
Wow.
globally think that they're beautiful, right? So we have a lot of work to do, but
Yeah.
which tells me that need to we need to build confidence because when we're
Mhm.
confident, we feel good about ourselves.
Right.
And it's
Right.
not about being the loudest person in the room. It's knowing that you should be in the room. That's
Right.
really what it's about. And so all these steps that I do, which is, again, positive affirmations, evening
Mhm.
gratitudes,
Mhm.
all of my little, and with my real method, it's really all about building confidence because you do need confidence. And it's not that you just don't have it, it's that something chipped away during your life that you just don't
Mhm.
feel confident. But like any skill, you can build it.
Yeah. I like how you're positioning it as a skill because it's not something you have or you don't have. It is something that's learned and it's continuously kind of being polished over the years because if you it starts that with that self-respect. Really, if you like you who you are, you're more likely to be confident in what you're doing. But it's that practice like over and over again. You don't just, we don't, when we were little, we don't remember this part, but probably, we fell down a lot when we started walking.
Mm. Yep.
It's failure. Like you didn't walk, like you fell down. But we didn't stop and nobody there like said, nope, don't walk anymore because you
Hmm.
fell down 10 times. And so, but over time, like that becomes shorter. We try something once and all of a sudden we're like, oh, I'm not good at it.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
tried walking, you tried riding your bike, you tried tying your shoes more than once. Like, we have to kind of remember those things that we all have to start somewhere, and we're not going to be good at something the first time. But as we do it and we do better, it gains our confidence. Our
Yeah.
confidence grows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when we talk about when we're little because we don't have that fear. What did I
Mhm.
see something the other day that there's like two things that we're afraid of, loud noises and I forget what the other one was, but really everything else we create for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, we fell down all the time and we got back up. And guess what? When we got back up, someone was usually like, "Oh, good job." And that's how we should be to ourselves, right? When we
Mhm.
fail, when
Mhm.
we hit a bump in the road, we'll be like, you did it. Doesn't matter. You got through it." There's some
Yeah.
really interesting um, thoughts about failure as well. So my kids' first grade teacher, the two youngest ones, they had the same teacher for first grade, and she would celebrate failures. So
Mm,
because that's the only one way that kids would try. Because if they made a mistake and they're like, no, you did it wrong, guess what? They're not going to get back up there.
mm,
So they had a whole routine that, and I actually wrote about it in my first book because I loved how she did it. So basically, if they would come up to the board to work on something and if they got
mhm.
it wrong, everybody would cheer for them. They're like, good try, good try.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, you did it wrong, then it was kind of like,
Right.
okay, now here's the steps so that you learn something from it.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I see that with my younger kids that they're willing to try more things than the older ones that didn't have that in their classroom because you get up in front of your peers and you're mortified when you do something wrong. So who wants to raise their hand? But
Right.
all the kids in that class wanted to raise their hand all the time because they kindly got constantly got clapped for, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that I was on a podcast the other day, and the woman I was talking to, she was so funny. She said, "You know what? Next time I fail at something, I'm taking myself out to dinner." Because it means that I
Yes.
tried. It means that
Yes.
like I took a step forward. And I was
Yes.
like, exactly, exactly. So we have
Just
to stop.
reframing it. We're just reframing
Yeah,
it in our heads. Like it is not something to be like shrinked, and like, oh crap. Because everything that we look back in our lives that we've tried, walking, riding bike, doing math problems, spelling words, we have messed up all the time. But
yeah,
somebody was there and said, oh, okay, well, try again, try again.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
get up, you know. But we need those cheerleaders and if we don't have those, like in our lives, we need to be that for
yeah.
ourselves.
And we really do need to be our biggest cheerleader
Mhm.
because we don't need to wait for outside validation, right? It's nice to get a compliment. I couldn't accept a compliment for years. People
Yeah,
would say, and that's how I knew that I wasn't respecting myself because I was really, when I really thought about it, when someone gives you a compliment, they don't have to. So as
right.
soon as you basically, I would say things like, oh, Simone, your hair. Someone would say, oh, Simone, your hair looks great today. Oh, I think it's frizzy. Okay, what am I doing? I'm dismissing them. So I've already made them feel bad. Do
Yeah,
you think they're going to give me another compliment ever because I just dismiss it? No.
yeah,
And it was a very long process for me to just be able to say the two words of thank you.
right.
And when someone gives a compliment, it makes them feel good, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we have to remember that too, instead of just constantly dismissing things because we feel like we're not good enough. I mean, if someone's going out to recognize us, but we don't need the outside, validation. It's nice to get
right,
compliments, but
right.
we need to feel that way about ourselves.
Yeah,
So we should
yes,
get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, "You're beautiful,"
yes.
and start our day like that instead of like, "Oh my gosh, look at those wrinkles and oh, look at the pillow mark on my cheek. That's going to take all day to go away," right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
like we're just way too hard.
We are. Compliments are gifts.
Yeah.
Like it's a present. Somebody is giving you a gift, giving you a present. They put a little bit of thought into it, right? They don't give gifts to everybody.
Mm,
And so if you were ever given a gift, you're like, oh, I hate those
right.
things. Like, oh my gosh, you would never say that. It's like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And even if you gave it away, it's just like, but you acknowledged it
Mhm.
and you made that other person feel good, but it still feels good to get a gift.
Absolutely.
So we can
And
gift that to ourselves every day, multiple times a day.
yeah, and you know, those are the gifts that, yes, from other people, but if we give that to ourselves constantly, it really, and I'm not saying just make up stuff, right? I mean, it is really, what you're saying to yourself is really true. I mean,
Mhm,
there's not one person that can look in the mirror and say, I'm just ugly. Okay, that is not true. There is something beautiful about every single person,
mhm.
and we need to keep reminding ourselves of that. And again, it's not just the outer beauty that I'm talking about.
Right, right,
So it's
right.
how we move forward in the world, how we care for other people. The little things that we do every day
Mhm.
really do change our part of the world. So whether you're bringing dinner to a neighbor or helping someone bring their trash cans in, whatever it is, you never know how something is going to change someone's day, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
what the ripple effect of that is. So we it was after right after COVID, we were going to Starbucks and you can't go in, of course, so the drive-through only. And the line is way out into the parking lot. So I'm like positioned in a way that cars could still back out of their spots, but I'm heading towards the drive-through.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, this red car comes in and completely jumps the line, and I lose it. I lose it. So I'm sitting in the car with my daughter. Millie was 15 at the time, and I it was actually quite hilarious. So we and I'm complaining about everything. Like, I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. Like, don't people know how to line up? And or I just went off. And so she looks at me with that, teenage look, and she says, I think you might need to reread your own book. I think you might have forgotten a few things about kindness and patience and understanding. And then she hits me with what I say all the time. You never know what someone else is going through, Mom. You can never walk in their shoes. So uh, you might need to take a step back. And of course, at that point, I'm laughing because I was like, oh my gosh, she just became me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we get up to the window to pay. And of course,
Yeah.
the car had jumped in front of us, paid for our drinks. And so then the conversation went to, can we buy drinks for the people behind us? And how long do you think it's going to last? Like, will every
Yeah.
person buy a drink? I said, until it gets to like a $40 drink and then they're not doing it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but it's something that I will remember forever and something that came out of being so ridiculous and
Hmm.
don't even know why I was so angry. But that it really was a lesson that's going to stick with me forever.
Yeah.
And the fact, like, I like to call things like that kitchen table leadership.
Mm, yep.
So the idea that you don't need a title to lead, I think so many of us believe that we're not leaders because we're not, we're not in the boardroom, we're not the CEO, we're a volunteer, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
every decision that we make, those are
Hmm.
leadership decisions, right? The things, the
Yeah.
choices that we make when we're sitting around the kitchen table. And so that's like a prime example of a kid being a leader.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
we have to really think about those things. And that's part of confidence too, is understanding that we don't, it goes back to the comparison thing, but we are all leaders, right? We lead
Yeah. We
in
are.
different ways, but
Mm,
we don't think about it like that because nobody has ever said to us, well, that's leadership.
right.
And we don't need to wait for someone to tell us that's leadership. It
Yeah.
is leadership.
Right. If you are leading others, which means if you have any relationship with other people, you are leading them in some ways. You're a role model. Any of
Mhm.
your actions, your talks, And so I love it, like not really love it in the moment, but like you said, when your daughter like kind of like was talking just like you, just like
Yeah.
throwing those things right back in your face. I was like, hey, at least they're listening. They've caught on to something.
Yeah.
And we do that, even when young kids, right? If you use words that maybe aren't appropriate for that age, they'll repeat it.
Oh, yeah.
You are leading them. So everybody has, and leadership is influence.
Mm.
So if you have any influence over somebody, we have influence just by being around others. So we all are leading someone, even ourselves, every
Hmm.
single day.
Yeah. And we don't need a title to do it.
We don't need a
We just,
title.
yeah. So again, I think that goes back to the idea of self-respect. And we're thinking about, oh, well, that person, they're in the C-suite, so
Mhm.
therefore they're better than me.
Right.
And that is so ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
the other thing I want to remind people of is that you you have no idea what's going on the inside, what's happening on the inside for someone. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times we talk about, oh, that person looks so confident. But at the end of the day, they really struggle. And
Yeah.
again, statistics on that, like
Yeah.
75% of executive women have at least once in their career have had imposter syndrome, feeling
Mhm.
like they're going to be found out. Like they really didn't do the work to get there. When they did, they just feel like, oh my gosh, I don't deserve this. This is not
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it's so important to remind ourselves that everybody struggles and that we can't look at someone and say, we can't look at a social media post and say, oh my gosh, like look at their life. It's absolutely amazing. And they're the most confident person in the world. And everybody struggles. I have
Everybody
not met
struggles.
one person that doesn't struggle with something. They just don't like to talk about it. And that's why I think it's so important that we do talk about it because
Mhm.
then you're like, oh, wait. And that was a moment for me where I was with a group of women and I was like, wait, oh my gosh, I thought they had the most perfect relationship. Nope, that's just a facade, right? So
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
really important that and it's that way we can help other people better.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Oh my gosh, Simone, this has been an awesome conversation. We could talk so long about self-respect, confidence, self-love, just leading ourselves and just being a positive influence for ourselves, but also for others. How can listeners find out more about you? Where can they go?
So best place is my website, which is simoneknego.com, SIMONEKNEGO. com. And even if you spell it wrong, I'm sure you're going to find me because as of now, I'm the only Simone Knego in the world. Um, Someone's going to just name their kid that
Yes,
just to have it. Yeah.
yes,
Because it's such a great name.
it is.
Yeah. And so, but I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I would love to hear from you. My book is on anywhere you can buy a book online. My first book, The Extraordinary Unordinary You, and then my second book comes out in February, and that one is called Real Confidence: A Simple Guide to Go from Unsure to Unshakable. And so I'm really excited for that to come out.
Hey.
And yeah, but reach out to me because I love to hear from people. I love to answer questions, and I'm here.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll put some of those in the show notes so people can easily, just click on it and find you. So as we wrap up today, this wonderful conversation, is there anything that's been left unsaid or a thought or a quote you'd like to leave the listeners with?
So I think what I'd like to leave them with today is, and it kind of really ties everything together that we've been talking about, is that the we need to drop the just. You're not just anything. You're not just, I used to justify my life. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just Rob's wife. When you start listening to people talk, you'll realize how much they use the word just. Drop the word just because I am, right? I
Yeah.
am a mom. I am a wife. And those are really important pieces of who I am. And
Mhm.
so we need to get rid of the just. So because it's all about um, really changing the way we see ourselves, because we don't need to change who we are. We need to change the way we see ourselves.
Yeah. And just is very limiting.
Mm, absolutely. It totally takes away our power. It's like
Yeah.
you're justifying your life by
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom." I mean, when you say it out loud and you feel the difference,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just a stay-at-home mom, which I am a stay-at-home mom. However you say, that
Yeah.
just it really does. It is so limiting.
And I am, creates that identity for yourself that you
Mhm.
can be proud of.
Right.
And you are. It is
Right.
you. Just be proud
Yeah.
of it.
Exactly.
That's self-respect.
Yep.
And it builds that confidence and it goes into all of that we've talked about today. So thank you so much for joining me. Love the conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing what the listeners have to say.
Thank you so much.